Hey guys, how's it going? Hope you're doing well. My name is Crown, and today I'm going to read you some very interesting stories that I hope that you're gonna love. And now, without further ado, let's go!
I'm a software developer who's been living in the same apartment building in Lisbon for 4 years now. Anyone who lives here knows that parking is brutal. You can drive around for an hour just looking for a spot on the street. When I bought my apartment, the private garage space that came with it was worth its weight in gold. My spot is one of the easier ones to park in, which I always appreciated after watching my neighbors struggle with their tight corners and awkward angles. Everything was going smoothly until last year when I got offered this job opportunity in Germany. The salary was too good to pass up, and the experience would be great for my career. Since I'd be gone for at least 6 months, I decided to move my car to my parents' house, where they have plenty of space in their driveway. Before leaving, I put up a notice in the building elevator that said I was the owner of apartment 3B and would be away for at least 6 months, so anyone was welcome to use my parking spot while I was gone. The job ended up being even better than expected, and I stayed for almost a full year. When I finally returned to Lisbon, I wasn't surprised to see my parking spot occupied. After all, I had offered it to the building. I put up another notice in the elevator explaining that I was back and would need to use my parking spot again. I thought 2 days was more than fair notice, so I went to pick up my car from my parents. When I drove into the garage, my spot was still occupied by the same car that had been there when I first returned. I had to park on the street, which was frustrating, but I figured maybe the person hadn't seen my notice yet. I decided to give it another day. The next day, the same car was still there. Now I was getting annoyed. I asked a couple of neighbors if they knew whose car it was, and they told me it belonged to a woman who lived 2 floors above me. I went upstairs and knocked on her door. When she answered, I introduced myself politely and explained the situation. I told her I was from apartment 3B and that I believed she'd been using my parking spot while I was away, which was fine, but now I was back and needed to use it again. Instead of being reasonable, she got defensive and started raising her voice. She told me that her parking spot was difficult to park in, and since I had said I'd be gone for 6 months, but was actually away for almost a year, she believed I had lost the right to that spot. The parking spots are part of the apartment purchase. It's legally mine. I explained to her that I understood her spot was difficult, but my spot belonged to my apartment, and I was just being nice by letting people use it while I was away. She then told me that I couldn't use her spot instead because she was using it for storage, and I would have to figure something else out. Then she slammed the door in my face. I stood there for a moment, stunned by her attitude. I decided to go to the building administrator to see if he could help resolve this. He listened to my explanation and agreed that she was being unreasonable. He promised to talk to her and sort things out. A few days later, he came back to me, shaking his head. He told me he had tried talking to her, but she wasn't budging. She insisted that since I was away longer than announced, the spot was now hers. He said there wasn't much more he could do administratively. I decided to take legal action. I sent her a registered letter explaining that she was illegally occupying my parking space and giving her 48 hours to move her car. I made sure to send it registered so there would be proof she received it. The next day, I was checking my mail when I saw my unopened registered letter sitting in the garbage bin next to the mailboxes. She had thrown it away without even reading it. I was furious, but I decided to try a different approach. I started watching the garage, and whenever she left, I would move my car into my spot. I figured she'd eventually get the message and find somewhere else to park. This turned into a game that went on for weeks. She would come back, see my car in the spot, and then park somewhere else in the garage temporarily. But when I left, she'd move her car back into my spot. It was like we were playing some twisted game of musical parking spaces. The situation got worse one morning when I came down to get my car and found the entire driver's side completely keyed. Deep, deliberate scratches ran from the front door all the way to the back. The damage was going to cost me hundreds of euros to fix. I was done playing games. I called my friend who owns a towing company and explained the whole situation. He was as outraged as I was and asked if I wanted him to tow her car. I said yes, but not just anywhere. I wanted to make sure she really learned her lesson this time. We planned it for Saturday morning. I had been watching her patterns for weeks, and she never left her apartment on Saturday mornings. We figured we'd have the best chance of getting her car out without her noticing until it was too late. My friend arrived with his tow truck early Saturday morning. The garage was empty except for her car sitting in my spot. We hooked it up and drove off without any problems. We were going to leave her car just a few blocks away, but that felt too easy. Then I suggested maybe the next town over, about 15 minutes away. But even that didn't feel like enough. My friend jokingly suggested we take it to Madrid. He was joking, but Madrid felt perfect. It's about 600 kilometers away in Spain, far enough that it would be a real inconvenience for her to retrieve it. I asked him if he was serious and if he had time for that kind of trip. He said yes, explaining that this woman needed to learn that actions have results. So off we went to Madrid. We made a whole day of it, had lunch, walked around the city, and waited until it got dark and the streets were mostly empty. We had already decided where to leave the car, a handicapped parking spot right near a police station. It was perfect because not only would she get in trouble for parking illegally, but the police would be right there to deal with it. My friend removed both license plates from the car before we left. We drove back to Lisbon that same night. It's been 2 weeks now and I haven't seen her car once. Every morning when I go to the garage, my parking spot is empty and waiting for me. I park there with a huge smile on my face, knowing that somewhere in Madrid, she's probably having the worst bureaucratic nightmare of her life, trying to get her car back. I'm thinking about leaving a helpful note in her mailbox soon. Maybe something like, if you're looking for your car, you might want to contact the Madrid police. But for now, I'm just enjoying being able to use my own parking spot whenever I want without having to play games or worry about my car getting vandalized. She can't even complain to anyone about it. What's she going to say? Someone towed the car I was illegally parking in someone else's spot. After I keyed their car, she dug her own grave with her entitled attitude, and now she gets to lie in it 600 kilometers away. I'm what you'd call intimidating looking, 6 feet 6 inches tall, weighing 280 pounds, with only 9% body fat. I've got long hair, a goatee, tattoos covering my arms and body, and I dress in leather and boots. Even when I'm sitting on my motorcycle, I tower over most people. Everyone assumes I'm some kind of biker gang member or criminal. But here's the thing, I'm actually a veterinarian. Yeah, the guy who looks like he could snap truck tires in half spends his days gently handling newborn kittens and caring for sick animals. I'm married to the most wonderful woman in the world. She's small and sweet, the complete opposite of my intimidating appearance, but we adore each other. She has a 7-year-old daughter who I adopted when we got married, and we were expecting our first child together. Life was good. This whole mess started on a windy afternoon at one of those big furniture stores where you buy everything in flat boxes and assemble it yourself. You know the one. My wife and daughter had gone inside to look for something while I stayed outside enjoying the breeze. That's when I noticed an elderly man pushing a shopping cart with a large box toward the parking lot. The old man looked around and waved at me. I figured he recognized me from somewhere in the neighborhood. After all, I'm pretty hard to forget with my appearance. So I smiled and waved back, being friendly. Then he started waving me over toward him. My first thought was that he needed help loading his purchase, which seemed reasonable. I mean, helping out an elderly neighbor seemed like the decent thing to do. When I walked over, I realized I had never seen this man before in my life. That became crystal clear the moment he opened his mouth. The old man started yelling at me about how I was waving at him but not paying attention. He complained that I must have been counting cracks in the pavement or something equally useless. Then he went on about how the country was doomed because they let people like me work. I was completely taken aback. I tried to respond, but he cut me off before I could get a word out. He told me to save my excuses for my supervisor and demanded that I load his box into his truck immediately. I simply told him no. He had clearly never heard that word before, at least not directed at him. He tried to get in my face, though, given our height difference, he had to crane his neck back just to look at me. I could practically hear his vertebrae cracking. He demanded to know why I wouldn't help him. I explained that I didn't work there, didn't know what was in his box, and didn't know who he was. I still couldn't believe he had mistaken me for some kind of parking lot employee. Just because I looked rough didn't mean I worked manual labor. The old man insisted he had just bought the item and hadn't stolen it. Then he made a comment about how, even if he had stolen it, people like me would be used to that kind of thing. That's when it hit me. He was making assumptions about me based on my appearance. To him, I looked like trouble, like someone who would be familiar with theft and crime. He threatened to call security to report me. I told him to go ahead. Security arrived within a few minutes. The old man immediately launched into his complaint, talking fast to get his version out first. He insisted I worked there, claimed I was refusing to help an elderly customer, and demanded I be fired immediately. I explained that I was just another customer and that it wasn't my job to load boxes for random people in parking lots. By this point, the old man realized his mistake but wasn't backing down. He started going on about how I needed to respect my elders and show proper deference. I told him I could have helped if he had asked nicely, but since he had assumed I worked there and been completely rude about it, I wasn't going to help him now. The old man launched into a rant about how, when an elder tells you to jump, you should only ask how high. He said refusing to help an elder should be punished and complained about what the country had come to. He went on and on about how this new generation had no respect. The typical entitled elder speech. I was getting tired of his attitude when I spotted my wife and daughter coming out of the store. They saw the commotion and looked confused. That's when inspiration struck. I turned my back to the old man so he couldn't see what I was doing and put my finger to my lips, signaling my wife to stay quiet. She immediately knew I was up to something. I quickly walked over to them, grabbed my daughter, and started tickling her ribs hard. She burst into laughter that sounded more like screaming. I turned back to the old man and shouted over the noise, asking him if he could hold this screaming child under the security cameras while I went to get my windowless van. The old man went white. He backed away so fast I thought he might trip over his own feet. His expression was pure horror and fear. The security guard started frantically patting himself down, looking for his radio. I put my daughter down and she stopped the fake screaming immediately. She told me she was going to get me back for that trick, but she was still giggling and grabbed my hand. My wife burst out laughing so hard she started snorting. The old man stood there with his mouth hanging open, completely speechless. I looked at him and simply said that now he knew how it felt. Without another word, he turned around and walked away. The security guard pulled himself together and told me that what I had done was epic. We were still laughing about it when we got home. My daughter still brings it up sometimes, asking if we can play the screaming kid trick again. My wife says it was the funniest thing she'd ever seen. I was just glad I could turn the tables on someone who thought they could push me around because of how I look. I am a voice actor who uses a wheelchair. Living in this area means dealing with people who seem to have their heads in the clouds most of the time. Cars don't see me, people bump into me, and I've had way too many close calls. That's why I wear this bright yellow-green safety vest every time I go out. It's the same kind construction workers wear, and it's probably saved my life more than once. The problem is that the local grocery store employees wear almost identical vests. This place is owned by a big chain, but around here everyone calls it by its local name. The cart collectors all wear the same high-visibility vests as mine, except theirs have black trim and the store name printed on the front and back. Plus, all the employees wear name tags. I don't have any of that. I'm usually in all black clothes with heavy tattoos and a beard, so I look nothing like their clean-cut employees. Here's another thing about me that matters to this story. I'm a voice actor, and when I'm out in public, I speak with a posh, North London English accent. I learned early on that people treat me better when I sound sophisticated, even though it's not my natural voice. It's sad, but true. Last Friday, I went to do what I call the double whammy, picking up my prescriptions from the pharmacy inside the store and grabbing some groceries. I've been going there so often that most of the staff know me by now. They usually wave or say hello because I'm hard to miss and I tried to be friendly with everyone. I wheeled myself into the soup aisle and got stuck looking at all the options. There were so many different kinds, and I couldn't decide what I wanted. I was probably there for about 5 minutes, just staring at the shelves like an idiot. Never shop when you're hungry. Trust me. That's when I heard someone clearing their throat behind me. I ignored it because I had no idea if they were trying to get my attention or just clearing their throat. It happened again, and I still didn't turn around. Then this woman grabbed the handles of my wheelchair and spun me around to face her. I nearly swung at her out of pure reflex. Nobody touches my wheelchair without permission. Ever. It's like grabbing someone's cane or their glasses. You just don't do it. I gripped my armrest tight and tried to stay calm. Before I could say anything, she started yelling at me. She told me that when a customer is trying to get my attention, I shouldn't ignore them. She said she had been trying to get my attention for minutes and that she didn't like my attitude. I took a deep breath and tried to unclench my fists. I started to apologize politely and tell her that I needed to tell her something, but she cut me off completely. When someone interrupts me, I just shut down. It's something from my childhood that I still can't shake. I literally cannot speak until the other person stops talking, so I went completely silent. She told me she didn't want to hear any of my excuses. She said that just because I'm in a wheelchair doesn't mean I can get away with being an inconsiderate jerk. She told me the world doesn't revolve around me and that there are other people in the world far more in need than me. She said she had half a mind to wheel me over to the service desk and report me to management. She stopped talking and gave me this look that said, "Your move." I waited a few seconds to make sure she was done. I told her very politely that it was illegal, socially irresponsible, and tactless to grab someone's wheelchair without their permission. I explained that what she did counted as assault. I said that while yelling at me wasn't illegal, I didn't appreciate it. I asked her what reason I had to help her at this point. I told her I didn't work there and asked her to look at me. I pointed out that I didn't have a name tag and was wearing black jeans and a t-shirt, which clearly wasn't a uniform. I explained that I was just wearing a safety vest for my own safety. She looked like she was about to explode. I honestly can't remember exactly what she said next, but it was something about how dare I talk to her like that, mixed with a rant about disabled people always thinking they can get away with anything just because they're crippled. Then she did something I never expected. She stepped around behind me, grabbed my wheelchair handles, and started pushing me toward the front of the store. I was so shocked, I just froze. In 1,000 years, I never would have thought someone would actually do this. I could have pulled my brake handles to stop her, but I had a basket of groceries in my lap that would have gone flying. Plus, she would have crashed into the back of my head when we stopped suddenly. Two of the self-checkout attendants noticed what was happening. One of them, that I know pretty well, immediately got on his radio and called for help. Before I knew it, we were at the customer service desk. She started slapping her hand on the counter like she was trying to get a bartender's attention. The manager on duty turned around. She's a woman in her late 20s covered in comic book tattoos, and we know each other pretty well. The woman launched into this huge tirade about how I was incompetent and had no regard for customer service, and all this other nonsense. The manager just blinked at her and told her that I didn't work there. The woman asked what she meant by saying I didn't work there. She pointed out that I was wearing a safety vest and that the store employees wear the same ones. The manager explained that their vests have the store name on them. She said they also give name tags to all employees so customers know who they are if there's an issue. She told the woman that I was a customer who comes in at least 4 times a week. I could practically hear the gears turning in her head as she processed this. The woman asked if I really didn't work there and demanded to speak to the store manager just in case. The manager sighed and picked up her phone to call the store manager. But before she could finish dialing, the head of security came walking over looking absolutely furious. This guy is huge, probably 6'5" and built like a lumberjack. The security chief asked the woman what she was doing to me. He told her she had just grabbed a disabled person's wheelchair and moved them without their consent. The woman started to make excuses, but he cut her off. He told her that wasn't a question and that she doesn't do things like that in his store. She tried to argue again, but he told her to shut up and that she needed to come with him right away. The look she gave me could have killed me twice over, but the security guy was giving her an even deadlier stare. She got escorted to the back office, sputtering and protesting the whole way. The manager asked if I was okay. I told her I really wasn't. It had been a rough week already, and this whole thing had my anxiety through the roof. I just wanted to go home. She stepped out from behind the counter and patted my shoulder. The self-checkout guy also came over to check on me. When I said I wasn't really okay, he offered to push my wheelchair out to my car if I was comfortable with that. I said yes. The manager gave me a card with a phone number and told me that when I was ready, I could call to have my groceries delivered. She said she'd waive the delivery fee for my trouble. I thanked her and said that would be best for now. The employee wheeled me out to my car, helped me get my wheelchair in the trunk, and I drove home feeling completely drained. After talking to my partner, friends, and family, I decided to take action. I set up a meeting with the store manager, the security chief, and the local sheriff to file official charges. The meeting happened a few days later. I brought my lawyer with me and we met with the store manager who was on duty during the incident, the security chief, and a sheriff's deputy. As of right now, the matter is out of my hands. The sheriff's department is moving forward with an arrest, and my lawyer is working on the prosecution. I won't go into details about the civil case until it's closed, but I can tell you what I learned about the criminal charges. Some people suggested I file kidnapping charges, but it turns out there's a specific charge for what she did called transporting. That's when someone manipulates you through intimidation, physical force, or threats to move you from one place to another against your will. Kidnapping requires prolonged detention, but since she pushed me to the service desk and then let go, she didn't have continued control over my movements. The security chief and manager, along with several employees who witnessed everything, all gave statements to the sheriff on my behalf. My lawyer says there's a mountain of evidence, so it's highly unlikely she'll get away without some charges sticking. I never thought I'd have to deal with someone literally pushing me around a store, but here we are. At least now I know that there are good people out there willing to stand up for what's right, and that there are actual results for treating disabled people like objects you can just move around whenever you feel like it. And now we have reached the end of today's stories. Thank you for watching, and see you next time.